EDR evasion, all the techniques for lateral movement, fireless malware, all these things, they're baked in, right? So Joe the hacker now looks like the net army, the Chinese net army. I think that's exactly what you were saying. So, and if you think about an AI-powered attacker, what does it mean? I think the first thing it means speed, right? I tell people, you remember Log4j, Log4Shell, like a few years back, it was a terrible,
Yeah.
and I remember because it was like, my goodness, everybody was up on arms. We work all weekend to create the plugin and work with
But
customers.
yeah, I remember those
And
days.
right, everybody was mobilized to fix
Yeah.
it. You know in average, how long it took for
Mm.
people to patch? In average, large enterprise, US, in the US, North America, but worldwide, 12 weeks.
Welcome to another episode of Security Bros. I was about to say something else. That's not the show that we're doing right now.
Where's
uh,
John?
that's right. Where's John? He should be here to keep me in line, you know. And if you did notice, John is not here with me, but uh, the other brother's off doing other things. But that's okay because we've got a special guest tonight in Nico Popp. So Nico, just delighted to have you on here. You've been in this industry for a while, just really good thought leadership. Always appreciate your perspective on things. So excited to have you on. Maybe quickly, what are you doing now? And tell us a little bit about kind of where you've come from, because I think that's really relevant to this conversation today.
Yeah, well, look, excited to be here, and maybe I can be your French bro today.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, your real bro. Yeah, so Nico Popp, I've been in cyber, oh my goodness, more than 30 years, I guess. So a long,
Oh,
long time. I fell
yeah.
into the magic of cyber product when VeriSign acquired my startup that had nothing to do with security, and then I never left. So, I tell people a little bit about Nico, of course. I'm a, engineer by training and product guy by passion. And, I've I built cyber product for many, many years. And I'll tell you a story about that in a second. And now I work for my old boss, Greg Clark,
Nice.
at Crosspoint Capital. And so what I love about Crosspoint is I work with older company. Now we can call them legacy company because everybody is a legacy company with AI, all in cyber, as well as basically startup, because we have both a VC fund and we have a PE fund. So really fun. And you can imagine how things are changing. I'll tell you my story, my favorite story, because I was trying to explain to my daughter, what I'm doing and try to impress her a little bit, if you can ever impress your kids. And I was telling them, I did MFA-as-a-service, VIP was the first one. I did put DLP in the cloud, data protection. And she
Mhm.
looks at me, and I got a few more, and she looks at me and she says, "Dad, it is boring. It is so boring." And I thought, "Oh my God, I'm not winning that battle." So I was thinking, my first job in the Valley, I actually worked for Steve Jobs, and I did, I built an application server called WebObjects, and I thought, but she doesn't even know what an application server could be. So I told her, true story, every time, every time you buy an iTunes, it's my software.
There you go.
She looked at me, she paused and say, "That that is badass." And I got badass status for a week, and that's it. But that's kind of my moment of
I
fame
love it.
in the family. That's it.
My kids
Uh,
just think I talk to people all day. They're like, "That's what he does." I don't know how he makes money with it, but he just talks to people. So I love it. That's right. I'm like, "Well, I worked for, like, Google and Microsoft and stuff like that." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, that's cool." Yep, that is fun. Yeah, that no one, if you're not in this world, we forget that, it is a world and it's got its own language. And, yeah, it's always fun to try to translate, what we do. But,
Acronym soup. We love acronyms. I think we live and die by acronym.
yeah, that's right. If you don't have a good acronym, you're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
We'll start calling Security Bros, SBP, Security Bros Podcast. There we go. Good stuff. Well, Nico, you've have that background. You've been in really various facets of IT, and very successfully, which is really neat story to hear. Like, I mean, do think about the amount of stuff that does go through the iTunes store, or the amount of security related to MFA and how that market has evolved, and just really neat to hear some of that background. As we look at where we are today, I've seen some of your posts on LinkedIn, about using AI in the SOC. Just been really thoughtful, well put together, and just love to get your perspective on that. I mean, we look at what's happening. Google verified this week that I think it was this week that for the first time AI was used to find a vulnerability, so find a 0-day that wasn't known about, write the exploit code for that vulnerability, and then to write all of the attack and orchestrate the attack. And so, here one person goes and basically acts like a nation state. Now bring that to the SOC. They're getting bombarded with alerts and attacks and all these things. Uh, I don't know. What do you think is kind of the right moves here as we start thinking about how do we go forward with what is traditional security operations?
Yeah, I think it's so. Look, I think the big awakening moment for people was probably Mythos, right? And I think what people started to realize that this idea of AI powered attackers was actually becoming real. And if you think about an AI powered attacker, what does it mean? I think the first thing it means speed, right? I tell people you remember Log4j, Log4Shell, like a few years back, it was a terrible,
Yeah.
and I remember because it was like, my goodness, everybody was up on arms. We work all weekend to create the plugin and work with
But
customers,
yeah, I remember those
and
days.
right, everybody was mobilized to fix
Yeah.
it. You know in average, how long it took for
Mm,
people to patch? In average, large enterprise, US, in the US, North America, but worldwide, 12 weeks.
yeah. I was gonna say it
12
took,
weeks.
it took us a while, and we were
12
aggressive.
weeks. That's
But
right.
yeah.
So it takes about 12 seconds for an LLM to, well, now they'll find the 0-day, but even if the 0-day has been found, to generate an exploit, right? So we're talking about weeks versus, okay, minutes, right? Hours to operationalize a 0-day exploit. So people realize, okay, speed is a problem. And then you look at the other party's scale, right? Remember, like the Net Army unit, I forgot the name. I remember Mandian used to show the building in
Mhm.
Beijing, and we had this 150, Chinese hackers going after your network. You don't have 150 defenders. Well, forget about that, right? 150. So the hacker now has 150 agents hacking your network. So that's a game changing in terms of the scale. They'll find, they'll use vulnerabilities, misconfiguration that are not critical or high, right? So
Mhm.
they'll find something and they'll find improbable attack path. So scale is the second issue, right? Speed, scale. And the third element is sophistication, right? EDR evasion, all the techniques for lateral movement, far less malware, all these things, they're baked in, right? So Joe the hacker now looks like the net army, the Chinese net army. I think that's exactly what you were saying. So people realize that, and you look at history. I start with French history. There was a big battle against of you know English friends in the 1600 called Azincourt. They came with arrows, and all the French, knights got massacred because they had no arrows. Well, you know, as my son likes to put it, you don't go to basically, and then you get World War, tanks versus not enough tank. Cowboys, rifles against arrows, right? You don't go to a gunfight with a knife. And so I think this is you got to break the asymmetry. You need to oppose AI to AI, which is when people realize my SecOps has to become agentic. It's no longer, an if and the when has to be now, because as you say, it's happening. So I think
Mm.
that took over, by the way, we used to use the economic argument, you don't find enough people, MSS, managed security services, the fastest market in cybersecurity because there's not enough talent, right? Half half the alerts in the SOC people don't look at because they don't have the time, they don't have the people. Forget, you can throw that off the window, right? That's not even the argument. The argument is that asymmetry. And so, and then by the way, we want to win the war as well. So I think that brought this idea of agentic SOC forward, just in terms of the driver. That is straightforward.
Yeah, you said a couple things there that I want to drill in on. One is the SOC is overwhelmed all the time. I think about I built multiple managed services in the SOC space, right? Even as a managed service provider, with the scales that we build, you still don't get to all the alerts, right? You still don't get through all the noise, right? You're using different things to kind of decide whether it's critical or not, whether someone needs to look at it or not, because we only have so many people. Because even though organizations outsource that work to a managed SOC provider, they also don't want to pay what it costs to have every
That's right.
single one of those
They
looked
want
at.
they want them to work on the good ones, and they wanna pay. They like
That's
to pay
right.
for outcome, right? Not just by closed alerts,
Yeah,
right? The
exactly.
real
So as a managed SOC provider, you immediately start faced. I mean, now we're faced with what do we do? Well, we've got to build agents into our service because that's the expectation is that we can keep up with all of this stuff. And so we start looking at that. And of course, it is now they can do that as well. And what you said, the attackers are doing this as well. So it's not like, you know,
You
China
don't have a
doesn't have
choice.
to get
Yeah,
150
you don't have a
Chinese.
choice. You don't
Yeah,
have a choice, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting to just kind of think about, well, we need to do this. And one thing that's kind of risen to the top of the noise is like, well, what about all these agents? Like now who owns and how do you control these agents? And so I think it was the SANS Institute that put out an emergency brief, what was it, 3 weeks ago, saying, hey, you've got to build a VulnOps practice. And that VulnOps practice has these different jobs. One of those jobs is there's got to be an engineer whose job it is to build your agentic structure and make sure that there's controls and governance and things of that nature put in place from day zero, right? Day one, so that as these things get built, that person's responsible for coming back and making sure, hey, what does this agent do? You know, who owns it? Where's it going to go? What actions does it
Oh,
have?
that's
What
another
permissions does it
screw
have? Oh, yeah.
another screw of the problem, right?
Yeah.
But the VulnOps article was a good one. By the way, before we leave the agentic SOC,
Yeah.
I work with a few startups that are in that space. I also work with extra help that are looking. The network data is amazingly rich, and I think in the past it was overwhelming for really enterprises because you have to understand both the network and security, which is you don't find that talent, but
Yeah.
it happens that now that data is powerful context for
Mm.
the AI, and the question becomes so. It's always like, well, I want agent, but do I trust this agent, right? And we'll talk a little bit about agentic security, I assume a little bit later. But the what I've seen, which is interesting, is the beachhead, right? The entry point for a lot of these companies, the Skira, Vega,
Yeah.
Profits, there's gazillions, 10x, right?
Hmm.
Is let me handle all the outlets you're not looking at. Right? Remember that 50%? All these L1 stuff that let me handle it because you're not doing it anyway. So you have nothing to lose. And I may find, and usually you find a couple, breach, one breach in there is enough. And then you get the trust. The other thing is your argument becomes it's not like I'm replacing your people. I'm freeing your people from the
Hmm.
current job side of the work, and I'm allowing them to rise and do something that's more interesting. So I think that dual argument around there's no trust issue. I'm doing something you should be doing, you're not doing, and you can't afford not to do. And second, I'm freeing your guys to basically be a better form of themselves, right? And work
Yeah.
on more strategic things, more important things for you. So I think that's
Yeah.
important also to understand how you start, right? That agentic transformation in something that is intrinsically non-agentic, right? By legacy reason. So I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think one thing we're already starting to see is organizations saying, "Oh, well, we'll just deploy agents." Right? So never mind the budget for that new hire, the new security engineer. We're just gonna, you guys just do more with less. You know?
We're trading salaries for tokens.
Yeah, yeah,
And by the way, well, when we talk about agentic security, I think the number one use case is actually token cost. It's not even
mm,
security.
yeah,
Security is kind of number three. The people will talk about need to understand who's burning the tokens. Are we using the right model for this type of question? That's a cost issue. Remember when the cloud came, it was the same thing. There was a
yep.
few startups that say, "Hey, I'm gonna let you optimize your cloud spends." Exactly the same thing. That's the number one thing because people realize I'm running out of. It was the Uber guy, right, that posted a blog post saying, "We run out of budget like within 3 months."
What
Right?
are
It
we
was
gonna do?
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's
that's
what.
like it's one of those security things too, right?
Yeah,
What the I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 times in the last couple of years. Organizations have come to me and said, "Hey, I've got this weird spend." And when we go and investigate, it's like, well, yeah, it's because somebody's mining Bitcoin in your cloud environment. And you found out because your bill spiked, so at least you caught it, but you have a problem.
Well,
And now it's
obviously.
going to be tokens, right? Now you've got attackers who are going to say, well, we know you're using agents. So we're going to do things that cause those agents to take action in order to drive up your
Oh,
costs.
I heard the opposite. Actually, I heard
Okay.
some cool startup that say, since the attacker is gonna use AI, we're gonna basically lose them in a maze,
Nice.
doing things that are
Burn them out.
expensive, so that they burn basically,
Love it.
it becomes very costly. It's exactly the same idea,
I
but
love it.
reverse. I think it's a pretty cool concept actually, right? To
It
force
is.
the enemy, right, to spend a lot of tokens and,
Yeah. Maybe he'll think
and
twice when
use,
the
right?
next time he gets.
So
Yeah.
Honeypot will be back, it never
Yeah.
worked in cyber. Honeypot was never a real market. Who knows? I think there's a lot of very interesting area actually around
So you just said
products.
Honeypot was never a real market. I've seen the same thing. I talked to a bunch of vendors. I was running the security practice at Insight and formerly SADA, and doing a couple other places where we're focused on security. And I've had a number of vendors come and say, "Oh, we got this Honeypot solution. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Check it out." It never resonated. No customer ever wanted that. Sands Institute in that paper, they're like, you got to do it. You got to have something in here as a honeypot in your network to kind of ring bells if that thing gets touched. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I think I've seen the same thing, right? Honeypots have not been a huge success, but now it feels like you almost have to take this posture of you will be breached, and so since you will be breached, you need to put little things around, put these little honeypots around so that when they get touched, um, you at least know that you've been breached. I don't know. It may be offensive. It feels more still like a defensive maneuver than an offensive one. But maybe now's the time.
It The variation I like, and I would not call it honeypot, is really this idea of a digital twin.
Mm,
Which is not really to create honeypot, but actually more profound. It's like, and I'm stealing the idea from a small company that I really like the founders. I learned a
yeah.
lot from them. It's called Vekna, a little bit of advertising.
Mm,
And, what they're building is a cyber gym
yeah.
for
Okay.
your agent. If you think about, I'll take the army analogy, right? Before you send so you're gonna build the agent, right? Blue team, red team, VulnOps agent, right? Doing the, detection response. Before you send them to war, you gotta send them to boot camp, right? You wanna test them, you wanna see what's working, what's not working, you wanna train them. So
Mm,
how do you do that? And the frontier model got really good at programming, math and programming, because they created these gym, right, for math, so they can basically do RL on the model. There's actually no equivalent in cyber, okay? So this idea of the cyber gym, so you can bring your agent, your defenders, and train them and make them more effective, and then they can go back, is interesting. Right now, they're a very static environment. They have to become dynamic, and I think the grail is knock, 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 JPMC. I can discover your infrastructure and give you a digital twin, a cyber ranch, a cyber gym that actually look like your infrastructure. And now I can demonstrate and train your agent in that environment. I think
mm.
it's kind of the,
That's interesting.
the honeypot was a fake virtual thing. I think that's that idea on steroid. I think that has a huge potential to be one of these AI platform, because everybody is trying to build an agent, and then it's like, I have to test that thing.
Yeah.
Where do I go? Right?
Yeah.
And so to me, that's where what honeypot morphs into. And then, by the way, that means I have to have a fake VPN with vulnerabilities. I have to
Right.
have some attack path, right? To take, I have to, they allow you to take the flag to the conjugal database, these kind of things. But they have to be, there's going to be a lot of smart and engineering to do something that's interesting
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
area.
it's interesting. One of the things I'm seeing in the agentic space is just the number of agents that folks are building, the unknowns with that, the risk of like an LLM saying, uh, hey, this is totally fine. I investigated it. This is totally fine. And you find out, well, actually, no, it was really, really bad. Or the opposite, right? This is bad. And you shut something down, cause a disruption when really you didn't need to do that. And so, been working with a couple guys to develop a deterministic layer that basically agents can talk to. And all these vendors are, they're going out and talking. They're all building, not talking, they're all building their own agents, right? Microsoft, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto. I mean, they're all going to build agents for their platforms. And so where's the orchestration? Now you got to have agents that are orchestrating, because all those agents are going to be doing things at real, machine speeds. And now you need an orchestrator that says, hey, we got this thing from the Palo agent, we got this thing from the Microsoft agent. Are these both, like, are they corroborating or are they conflicting? Somebody's got to make that decision. And of course, we can't do that at machine speed. So we need an agent now to do that. And then we need a deterministic layer that says, yeah, this is actually bad security. Like, no, this shouldn't be allowed, or yes, this is allowed. And just kind of make that decision for those agents so they don't have to, with some sort of a confidence score, so that if it needs human interaction, it can go get it, right?
Well,
Um,
so that's the orchestration layer where what I've seen is people talk about, you have this master agent that will actually learn to pick the right agent for the job, right? Maybe I need that L1 EDR guy, but I'm not going to call the more expensive L3 agent to do this. And so it's a little bit like the army, right? It's, again, my analogy. There's a general, and the general assesses the situation and the certainty, and also make decision on who to send, right, combat for that problem, and assess, the data that comes back. So this, to me, I don't know. Do you think it's cyber related, or if something like, Anthropic and OpenAI are going to build, are going to own, right? I've seen startups that are saying we're building, the orchestration layer with that kind of model, and 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 they're too smart. One is that decision making on the agent, and then the other smart is what they call operational intelligence. We will learn. I mean, to your point, right? They're
yeah,
gonna be false positive, and they're
yeah,
gonna be true positive.
yeah,
And if we can capture these traces, that actually something that the LLM don't have, the foundation model don't have. And that become, so you have context, you have skill, and now you have traces, right? That becomes really what can improve your agent. And my analogy is, a 10-year employee is way more valuable usually than a 1-year employee, because they have all that knowledge of what work in the environment. They remember, oh, I've seen that problem before, we've done that. So that memory and that training data is actually super relevant to cyber. I just don't know if the orchestration, if every vertical problem, if I'm doing a CRM or a Workday competitor or any SaaS competitor, everybody needs an orchestration layer. It's almost like it's the application server. If I was in my 30s and next, that's what I would try to build, right? Because that's really kind of it's pure, infrastructure, right? Software infrastructure. So I'm not sure whether it belongs to cyber, and it has to be, maybe there's a different approach to cyber than it's a general thing that the big guys will own. I knew for one thing in cyber, and it was a CISO posted that, don't try to own the agentic layer like everybody. If you have data, if you're a data publisher, if you have context, you're golden. Right? It
yep,
doesn't matter who owns that agentic layer, right?
yeah,
I think the second thing that he didn't mention, if you have content, skills, expertise, and I think you can monetize. You can monetize data, and you can monetize expertise. You don't need to own the agent, right? You can publish the skill, sell the skill, and let somebody own the agent and the orchestration layer. I think I tell this story a lot to my more legacy company. Start there. Right? Don't rush to, we're gonna build the agentic SOC, or we're gonna build the, no. Just find, be part of that ecosystem in a very compelling way. You won the war.
yeah. It's interesting, and that's kind of what we. So as we were building this out, I was like, okay, cool. We got the deterministic layer that's kind of working the way we want it to. In order for this to really scale, it needs to learn. So the stuff you just
It
laid
needs
out,
to
okay,
learn,
yeah,
because otherwise,
yeah,
exactly. It's actually interesting. So people talk about just the memory, and so you just remembering what works, what didn't work.
yeah,
But I call it, well, then you're creating monkeys. But they won't be able to adapt to a new situation. But what the frontier guys have shown, if you do reinforcement learning with that data, then you can train a model to actually be an expert. And if that agent faces a new situation, it'll be able to reason out of it. And the other element is you can use smaller model. Now you don't have to pay the Anthropic or the OpenAI tax.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
can actually create, uh, and there's a reason also why you want smaller model, and sometimes distill, not just cost. You want them to not go outside the reservation sometime, right? Some you want just to do what, like it's like replaying the playbooks that have actually worked in the past and don't hallucinate and do something crazy. And then you want the guy who can actually, the L3 guy who can comes in a new situation, right? And that has actually, but has all that training all around the different
That
situations. So I think
experience to say,
you're going to
yeah.
need that
Yeah.
combination of
Mm.
the low level guy who's doing the work really well, buy the book, buy the workbook, buy the run book.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and I'm excited to see how this progresses because it also feels like with all of this, it really has forced. This is all over LinkedIn. I feel like this is the conversation every day on LinkedIn. Is this is forcing us all in security to realize we've been doing things wrong for a long time. We all knew it, but now we can't get away with it
But there
any
was no
longer.
other
You know?
choice. I mean, we were
Right.
doing as
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I hope nobody's beating themselves up over it because, what are you going to do if you only get so much budget? These are the tools, the things available to you. And so you got to do what you got to do. Right. But yeah, I think it's also highlighting the fact that that experience is going to matter. Your ability to reason is going to matter. And then, as you said, right, there's different tiers and we have different expectations at different tiers. And so
and
how
sometimes I
do we
want
build with
something more
that?
deterministic. I don't want it to
Yeah.
reason. I just want it to run all the playbooks we've run in the past, right?
Yeah.
And
And say yes
controlling
or no.
that is also
Yeah.
important. So you want different people for
Yeah.
different jobs, different
Yeah.
agent jobs.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. We got our first couple beta customers, right, or alpha customers, I guess, really is the right term, and so it'll be interesting to see how that
Yeah,
platform
yeah, yeah.
plays out and what we can do with it. I mean, you mentioned mini models and there's self training and all this stuff, and that all costs a lot of money. So we'll see.
Well, I work with 10x, probably
Yeah,
you
yeah,
all,
yeah.
right?
Those are good guys.
Crosspoint invested big time in 10x, so I'll
Mm,
be I'm gonna learn a lot from what
yeah,
they're able to do and what they're not
yeah,
able to do.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, good team, and again, agentic is the way forward, and so it's going to be interesting to see
You know,
how
it
we
was
shape it.
funny. I was going to, people were asking me, many VC friends asking, okay, if you were younger, what startup would you do in cyber? I say, it's very easy. DLP, agentic DLP, automate creating the
Yeah.
policy and managing
Mm,
the incident. CNAP, right? Agentic
yep.
CSPM,
Yep.
something. I'll
Exactly.
triage all the alerts. AppSec, I'll be in the CI/CD. I mean, it just
But
that's
yeah.
the beauty, right? Every single security market
Mhm.
is going to. I'm looking for agentic EDR, that's the most interesting one, because that's a big one, right? We'll have to has to evolve to take the new architecture, right, into consideration, otherwise you're dead man walking, right? So that's renaissance,
It
I
is.
suppose.
It really is. Yeah. I
Good
mean,
day, good time to be alive.
it is a good time to be alive. It's also one of those times where like you look at it and go, okay, is this going to be like the industrial revolution where we all go, oh, we're losing our jobs, and turns out no, everybody's still got a job on the other side, or will we see,
That's
that
actually
time where
that to me,
robots
that's the
and stuff
scary
come?
part. Did you see, I forgot, I think it's a VC, there's that his tweet is, well, his post is going viral. He's talking about, like, the great divide in San Francisco between the guys that already made, like, $20 million plus because they work at Anthropic and OpenAI, and the rest of the population, living in Silicon Valley in the last years. I already seen, the regular people and people in tech, but now it's like people in AI, people in tech, so now it's creating this almost this caste. And, it was really interesting. Somebody told me that the capital distribution, the wealth distribution is more concentrated than at the turn of the century when the industrial revolution. Can you imagine I mean, to me, the big question is gonna be the social unrest, right? And then people tell me, "Oh, it's easy, we're gonna do what is it called? The wage,
Universal income.
the
Yeah.
universal income thing." It's like, dude, work is more than
Yeah.
just an income, right?
That's right.
It's an identity, it's a raison d'être. People, sometimes it transcends their existence. So people work for more than the paycheck, I think. And so So if you take that away, what's left? And then I have another French friend that actually came back with, I thought that was really interesting. He said, "Oh, no, no, that already happened. Look at the Romans,
Mm,
right?" So
yeah.
they had slaves as the agent,
Yeah.
and, most people didn't work. So they were like, they had 3 options. They could be basically, in the army, right? Go conquer. They could be, philosophers, they could basically, they love learning,
Go sit in the
keep
city gates
studying.
and yeah.
Or they could do sport. They love sport, basically, the Olympic, and they could focus on their
Yeah.
body, and then,
If I recall, that didn't end well for them.
no, that never ends well, but I thought it was kind of funny. That happened
Yeah,
to us before, don't worry,
that's right.
right? People were idle. They were not working. They had other people working for them. It was like, okay,
Yeah,
maybe there's hope, but yeah,
yeah.
that's
Yeah, it'll be
that's
interesting to see. I mean, it's gonna change things. It is changing things now, hence this conversation, right? I mean, it is going to change the way we look at the world. It's gonna change how we operate in the world, and so cyber's
you
not
work
the least
differently,
one.
right? I work differently. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I already use I mean, how many times a day do you go into your Claude or your Gemini or your ChatGPT and, give them different tasks? Probably all 3, right? Maybe more, that you use on a daily basis to get different tasks done, and then AI is embedded into all these other tools or you're calling at your different tools with your with your agents, and so, yeah,
You know,
it's
the big bet in the valley is among the VCs is, how many years until we see the first unicorn of one person,
mm, yeah,
right? One person in doing the marketing, the sales, the engineering.
yeah,
And, I was listening to a podcast, the creator of, Cloud Code and Cowork, and he explained that nobody at Anthropic is writing a line of code. I mean, they're
mm,
all coding, but they're
yeah,
coding with Claude. So if you think, I used to manage hundreds of developers, right, around the world, and that world is gone, right? And the way we write code is totally transformed, and that started at the end of last year. I think January, it was basically coding was solved. So coding is solved, Agentic SOC will get solved, right? And
mhm,
and and so on and so forth. So,
yeah.
yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, I had that conversation today. Actually, we were talking about, hey, I've got a team of outsourced. One of these guys that I was hanging out with said, hey, I've got a team of outsourced developers. We're beginning to look at that and say, shouldn't those just be agents, right? Instead of third world countries.
UI, middleware, all that stuff. I mean, in
Yeah,
fact, what I'm seeing is people kind of interesting startups saying, maybe I don't need my team in India anymore. I'm gonna
yeah,
keep like the senior guy who can prompt code. I don't want to say vibe code, because they can architect, and they'll build the
that's right.
skills and they build a. And it was kind of a whoa. I can reduce the size of my engineering team, but I'm a maybe by the way that makes Silicon Valley less expensive after all because you have more concentrated talent,
Yeah,
and then the rest is token, right? What used to be kind of the second tier, and I don't like to use that word of, developers now is basically
yeah,
your tokens, the
yeah.
tokens you're spending.
And that world's changing too. I mean, those agents are getting better. The models are getting better at writing code. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
uh,
I mean, as I said, there was a big change at the turn of the year, right? Which I've seen that change because people like started realizing now it works. Now we
yeah,
can write code that way,
yeah,
and kind of and of course, in 6 months it might be different.
right.
Something else. I mean, right? Nobody talk about open cloud, and
Yeah,
by the way, back to your long question. The
yeah, yeah,
security issues, and actually, it's not even the security; it's the governance, right? As is a very hard and unsolved problem because the big issue is going to be I want to let these guys lose because they're so powerful. But if I let them lose and they start, screwing up, right? If my finance agents start doing the wrong,
yeah.
transacting
It's just
$150
spent all of my
million
money.
to the wrong place, that's a
Yeah,
problem, right?
yeah,
So this idea of so in a sense, it's actually not security, it's action governance. I call it IAM, identity action management. It's
mm,
the new identity. And it's kind of safety more than it's security, but that is the fast coming, people talk about harness and all these things, and solve problem. It's a really hard problem. Uh, but it's coming across all the verticals. That's the next, big market for cyber for sure.
Yeah, I saw, was it Anthropic's sandboxing now, right? Where you can
Oh,
go
they
and
used I
sandbox
used
stuff.
to call it sandboxing, and there's
Yeah,
OpenClaw and, from NVIDIA, whatever.
yeah,
Uh, uh, no, another name. But now it's a security harness or a governance harness. That's the term to use. Otherwise, you're not a cool kid. Right?
that's
If
right.
you call sandbox and,
Yeah, there was an
agent.
argument about, oh, is it sandboxing or is it governance? And you can't have one. Okay, guys, like
And you
the,
know
the
what's
fact of the matter is we got to control this stuff.
what's so hard? I want to blog about that because what's a hard problem is you want to control the action.
Yeah,
The action, so the sandbox will, it's like a proxy. Will see and can block the
yeah,
action, right? Can see
yeah,
the LLM, so you can see the reasoning track. But the action is like a REST call, an MCP call, a
mm,
CLI program running. What does it mean?
right, yeah,
So people are saying, "Oh, well, we need to write policy." And by the way, if I log that, how do I know? Is that an audit trail? I mean, I see a bunch of, I can figure out what really happened. So there's kind of a divide between what the sandbox can see, and really you need to. And people are saying the agent needs to interact with it. Why are you doing this? And show me, show me your intent. Explain your intent, and explain and show me why you can do it. So the agentic SOC example. I want to take Roki's machine off the network. Okay, that's my intent. So I'm calling that API from CrowdStrike. Great. Why? Well, because I have EDR critical alert. Look at all the evidence. Da, 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 da. Okay. But you're thinking at that level. So it's really agent to agent. So yes, Garner called them guardian agent. Because at the low level, at the action level, I think it's unmanageable. It's too granular. And maybe I'm missing something. I'm making way too complicated. But I did see the CPO from Okta to actually post around that and say, where identity cannot just be authentication and authorization and get out of the way. It's like reevaluate because, I'm going to give you permission to use that API, but if you delete 20 times, that's a problem. Deleting once might be okay. So totally unsolved. And maybe, my mental model is wrong, but that's going to be super interesting.
yeah. It's
Uh,
very interesting.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, because it's like,
If there's a
w-
startup out there that solved the problem, call me.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah, and we'll put your phone number in the show notes. No, we're
Yeah.
not going to do that. uh, but it's like these agents can also go faster, and so the actions that they're trying to do, I mean, all that stuff really matters. I was thinking the other day, does it make sense for me to build a virtual machine to run cowork inside of, and then
That's your
put some
sandbox.
controls
Yeah,
around
yeah,
it?
your sandbox is coming.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. And then Sandbox
I got
came
a
out, and I was like,
friend,
okay, there we go.
and Zillow is using basically a micro container. So it's lighter weight, right? And then, Google had some open source on there. So I think that idea
Yeah,
of the micro container, uh, to do, and by the way, then you do security, you do DLP, you look for
that's
point
right.
injection,
Yeah,
you can do all these things. But I think the first use case, so I told you the first use case is how much the token costing. The second use case is like action governance.
mm,
It's no longer are you authorized to do these things? Are you taking the right action right now? Do you have the right intent, or are you going out of the reservation? Are you hallucinating and doing something crazy?
yeah,
And so it's
yeah.
really a safety use case.
Mm.
And everybody who's building agent and a harness of agent and orchestrating agent has that problem. I
Yeah,
need to govern, right, what these guys are doing. As you said, it has to scale.
yeah,
Very, very hard problem.
yeah, and scale fast. I mean, the agents are getting better and faster every
And you
day.
cannot call the human,
Yeah,
right? I mean, like,
yeah,
the human is sleeping, right, at
that's
that
right.
rate. Because what are
Oh,
you gonna
yeah.
do? It's not gonna work.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, hey, I put this thing to work. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times where it's like, hey, I need all this research done in the morning because I want to review it. And then I go to bed. Right. And I get up the next morning and it's like, here's all, here's the breakdown of all this stuff. And, you're reading on the latest trends or whatever. And then, it's all done for you. I didn't have to do anything.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic. But, yeah. All
Soon
right.
you'll
Well, I
have
want
an
to
AI
get to
the podcast.
something else you said. I'm going to rewind a while ago. In the middle of that Agentic SOC conversation was vulnerability.
Yeah.
SANS Institute said, hey, you got to build VulnOps practices. If you don't know what VulnOps is, I'll link to the article in the show notes for those that are interested in digging deeper. Um, I saw that And I'm seeing already like AI being applied there by some really interesting, some of the vendors who are doing some really interesting things, right? Think about that action. You could build an agent to do some of this. So here, actually, all right, I'm going to take us on a different rabbit trail.
No, VulnOps is a good one. Is a good one, I think, and everybody, I think, has a. I read quite a few different articles, and
Yeah,
I think there's the view is sometimes incomplete. It's not just validation, for example,
that's right.
and finding the attack path. It's more than that. Okay, just to jump into it, since I cut you before you
No, you're
drift.
good. You're good to go for
I
it.
think it's really VulnOps for me is three things. First is you have to patch, but you have to patch faster, right?
Right.
So and you have to prioritize better. So you're gonna have to prioritize. So to patch better, you need to prioritize what are the vuln that are really exploitable and creating critical attack path in my environment, right? So and then you need to become agentic for the patching.
Mhm.
So let's call it agentic pass, intelligent agentic patching. That's number one. Number two, the problem with patching is you have to test whether the patch is disruptive and all these things. So it still takes too much time. Number two is using your existing control, reprogramming, and companies like Tuskia, Zafran, I've been talking about that. Can I reconfigure my control, my EDR? Can I change the policy on Falco? Can I change the policy on my WAF to actually disarm that zero day, right? Because if I understand the exploit, there might be a configuration in my EDR that will block it, and then that buys me time because basically it cannot be exploited in my environment. I have a mitigating control in place.
That's right.
I think that's number two. Number three is like detection response. I'm exposed during that time window between the agentic packers. I don't have, a control point I can reprogram. I need, and that's go back to the agentic SOC. I need to create the AI needs to create a detection rule, which by the way will not be on the logs. That's also let's go back to the agentic SOC. I need to create a detection response rule so that if the exploit happens in my environment, at least I can detect it and respond it while I'm doing the patching agentically. And because, I kind of optimize all my control, but I could not fully optimize my attack surface, protect my attack surface. I think if you do these three things, to me, that's VulnOps. And by the way, that's SecOps, right? What I learned at Tenable was, the 0 day, the critical ones, they don't go to the VM guys. They go to the L3 engineer in SecOps.
Right. Yeah.
And the guys who adapt the control is also the L3 guy. So it's really these two use cases are agentic SOC use cases as well. They're highly valuable. Customers will pay a lot for that, especially because of the mythos moment that
Yeah.
we have right now.
Yeah. I see a fourth layer, which is like adding the AI to do better upfront. So things like a keto security or a keto dev and
Or
some of
you
these
mean
other
like
tools.
eclipse type of things?
Yeah, where you're inserting that on the left side, right, where in the developer's workflow rather than after. I think a lot of tools today plug in at the pull request or plug in when you do the publish, right? But that's too late because the context window's gone. The developer's forgotten, what he wrote that for, what it was supposed to do, and so you're spending all this time. So they're either not going to go back and fix it because they don't have time to do it, or it just takes 3 times longer to fix because they forgot what it was about in the first place, right? They moved on to writing something else. Just the
I think
way,
the problem, Rocky, is
yeah,
that two problems to that, right? To give you two use cases. One is that 0 day is in open source
right.
library that I've been
That's right.
using for 10 years.
Yeah,
I can jack up the version,
yeah,
right? Oh, by the way, it's the latest version and there's no fix, right? Two, it's actually the worst one. And I think I heard rumors that some of the big banks that had Mythos went to the US government to say, you got to stop that thing because they realize their load balancer, their
mhm,
network firewall, their appliance had some critical 0 day. They have VPN,
yeah.
right? And they can't patch that.
That's right.
So, it's weird OSs, old stuff, no patch on the horizon. So I think that's you know, supply chain, 0 days, and, you know, uh, what is it called? The cost, basically, vendor software. That's where it's gonna hurt because, by the way, you didn't know I work a company called Reversing Lab. They can actually look
Mm,
at the binary from your supplier, your vendor, and say,
yeah.
"Oh, they're actually using that open source library that has
Yeah,
that
this is
0
bad.
day
Yeah.
vulnerability. You're dead." Because if
Turn
I
that
can
off.
find it, Mythos can impact it, and the Chinese can impact it, and they already know about it. And so I think these are the where you can't shift left fast enough, right? Because it's not your code, and you don't have a fix. So that's going to be
Yeah, your
all that is
traditional
built up.
enterprise. Yeah,
VM has never been as interesting as today.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah, you hit on something which is super important. I think a lot of enterprises that have big IT shops are in that boat that you just described, right? It's like, hey, we don't really develop anything in house. I mean, even some of the bigger banks, a lot of their stuff comes from third party providers that
Yeah.
handle all the transactions, and so
But even
they
you have
might
a load
find something.
balancer that
Yeah,
is, it's commercial software. If that
that's
load
right. You have no control on that.
and if I'm
Package that.
Chinese, I love load balancer and VPN.
Yeah,
They're in the DMZ somewhere. I can see them from the outside, right?
that's right.
It's my
Yeah.
highway to your conjure.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it is interesting to see. It'll be, I mean, hopefully these organizations obviously will be applying some of this stuff on their own tools as they're developing. But yeah, VulnOps is an interesting
I wish I
practice.
coined that term. That's such a sexy term, VulnOps. That's really good.
I know. I was
And
like, oh, good job. Who actually
I think
coined
it
it?
was
Do you
the
know?
CISO. Was it the CISO from Visa or I forgot? I forgot.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to go look. I didn't actually look that far back. I saw the report from those guys. So I left Insight and I launched Cloud Security Pros the week before SANS Institute said, "Hey, you got to do VulnOps," and I launched Cloud Security Pros to do that, like to attack that problem right there that you just described. Vulnerabilities come, everybody's got thousands of them. We categorize them critical, high, medium, low. We fix the critical ones, maybe do some of the high
It's a
ones.
complaint. VM was a complaint. I fixed my critical
Yeah,
on high, get out of the way. I don't need to
that's right. And
prioritize.
down we go.
And
Yeah,
maybe I'll do Kev. Kev prioritization.
yeah. And so it's really been interesting to see. I'm working with Zest Security. Have you've seen those guys and what they're doing?
No,
Yeah, so actually, we just did a podcast with Ben, the founder there, and all of what you just described, right? They're taking all of your vulnerabilities and saying, hey, of all these vulnerabilities, the analyst normally would go now and say, okay, we have this vulnerability. Is it exploitable? If it's exploitable, where does it live? Da, da, da. They're
no.
using AI to do all that.
The
And then
attack.
they're giving AI to say, here's how you mitigate that. So if you don't have time to go fix the code or you can't fix the code,
Yeah,
here's a
drop
WAF
the
rule.
EDR on that machine right there with that
Yep.
configuration done, or put a WAF right here, and then you're good.
Exactly, and then you mitigate it, and then they give you the code to do that too. So, okay, and here's a Terraform code to go, deploy your WAF in Amazon, and you're done, right? And or here's the code if it's code that you can actually go write, and it's
It's
not a
easy.
vendor
In
that you
public
can't
cloud,
control.
it's easy. In your
Yeah,
old IT infrastructure or your OT, you're dead
yeah,
man walking. It's much smoother.
exactly. The legacy stuff's gonna be interesting because you can't do anything. I
Software
think.
never dies. That's what I learned from my first job. Software never.
Mm, yeah, it's those flock cameras. You've seen the news on those flock cameras. They're getting beat up because they're hackable.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
think
Oh,
about it, like
yeah.
they're probably the guy who founds that company doesn't know anything about OT security.
Never
He
cared. They never
Yeah,
cared.
yeah.
Never cared.
And so they just put devices out there and oops, they're hackable and we don't really care because we're making all this money. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting problem where you're gonna run into that. I think that's the reality though, is we're going to run into it in the short term where we don't have those controls in some areas of our infrastructure. And so we're just
That'll
gonna have to
become
expect
agentic, by the
that.
way, right? For that same
That's right.
reason, right?
Yeah.
I just blog about the best user interface is no user interface, because my friend at Sysdig did headless CNAP, right? Because basically, imagine, right? I want to talk to the CrowdStrike agent, the Falcon agent, to say, "Hey, I got that exploit. Can you validate the configuration for me? Let's have that exchange and then push it, please." Right?
Yeah.
That's it, and that's
And
the
EDR is a good. I mean, that's like when's the last time you opened up your EDR tool on your desktop laptop? Like no one ever looks at that.
no script.
It just
People to
feeds
script.
data
I've
and
automated all
just
the stuff, right?
yeah.
A long time
So
ago.
we really already do that, and so
PM
it's
is
just
like this as well, right? If you're a large
yeah,
company, you're not touching the console. You're
yeah,
just going
exactly.
through the APIs.
And if you are, let's talk because you shouldn't be doing that.
But now it's
uh,
over, right? It's like
yeah,
basically APIs, MCP,
that's
CLI,
right.
and then the thing that's interesting is Slack.
Mm,
You know, all
yeah,
these agents working, how do I audit trail? I go on the Slack channel and see what they're doing.
that's right. Yeah,
If somebody has a question, he's on Slack asking me,
everything's in
"What
Slack.
are you doing?"
Yeah.
I think the messaging, right,
Mm,
tools are gonna become the really important UX, and for everything else, the agent will generate a UX on the fly. I don't wanna be the whole and I spend so much time building cyber console,
mm.
and I realize now they're all gonna nobody's gonna care. I mean, clearly, this it's gonna take a few years, but
Yeah.
if the audience is mostly
Well,
the agent, then they don't care.
yeah, you'll build a dashboard at some point, but the dashboard, really, the agent will
On
build
the
it.
fly.
You're not really
The
building it.
dashboard on the
Yeah,
fly for the CISO will be done on the
that's
fly.
right.
What do you need, right? You'll prompt it. "Oh, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, the
Yeah, exactly. Like, we'll still need the view, but the agents will build it for us when we
and I mean,
want it with the
exactly.
latest data. So,
With the
yeah, it'll be
remember
interesting.
so many time, "Oh, another dashboard, another report," you know? We need a
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's I mean, okay, as a consultant, I spend most of my life building dashboards for people
yeah,
to go look at,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And then every time you build one, you spend all this time developing it, and they're like, "Yeah, but can it also do this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, for another $50,000, I can go connect all that stuff and build that dashboard." And they're like, "Ah, never mind," you know? Um,
You will
if
sell your
everything's an
skill
agent,
now. You
everything's
will
an
sell your
MCP.
agent. You'll sell your agent and the
That's right.
skill.
Yeah, yeah.
You can ask him to
That's what
modify
you can do.
whatever you want, but you have to pay me you'll be a software producer.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things I'm toying with how to do, I have lots of ideas, Nico, you're probably picking up on that, is change the way we do professional services, because a lot of professional services, one of the things I jokingly tell folks is, like, the way I've made a lot of money as a professional service provider is I'm just a guy who's not afraid to push the button because I know how to undo whatever I just did, right? Well, now agents can do that, or they can help me do that at speed. So how do I build professional services as I scale cloud security pros up? I think it would be a mistake for me to just take the traditional services model and just be hiring people to do
No.
services. I need to build agents that people subscribe to, that do the things that they're asking me to do. Right.
And so you have
Um,
to capture your expertise so an agent
that's
can
right.
do that. And I think if, if you're, like the big three, the Accenture, the Deloitte, of the world, you
Yeah.
must be asking yourself the question, right?
Oh yeah.
What does my business, become in
Yeah.
that world? And I believe, right? I think expertise has value, but now you have to package it as software, right?
Yeah.
Service as software.
Yeah.
So same thing
Subscribe
with
to my
professional
expertise.
services. It has to become software,
Yeah.
uh, e.g., i.e.,
Yeah.
agentic software.
Yeah.
So can you imagine the transformation? I mean, all that budget, all that span can be reinvented. Every vertical, right? So it's like it's the Renaissance. I mean, it's this beautiful time
It is.
and day and year to be in
And
investment.
and it's interesting. You're saying, turn it to an agent. Yeah. You're saying turning it into an agent. And one of the things I've been talking about recently is, yes, do that, but don't forget that those agents are basically little software packages. And so my expertise is in that agent that you bought, but also I'm maintaining that expertise and maintaining that
Yeah,
agent,
yeah, yeah.
because stuff's going to change, right? And who are you going to call if the agent suddenly
It's
stops
still a
working?
SaaS. It is
Yeah,
still a SaaS. It's still a
that's
SaaS
right. Yeah,
product, yeah, it's still a SaaS. I agree with that.
yeah,
And by the way, you still need guardrail because the first question they're gonna ask you,
right.
how do I know that thing? Do I police that thing?
That's right.
Show me the trail, right, of what
Yeah,
happened, right?
yeah. No, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's really
You will
interesting.
need agentic security. You're gonna need that. You're gonna need the governance harness, the
Yeah, that's
sandbox.
right. That's right. We got to do it anyway, so might
Well,
as well.
everybody will. So you can see it's to me, it's the new EDR, right?
Yeah,
I try to call it AI DR, but I think, you feel like you're looking for attack. Well, it's about governance, so it's kind of a upside down, right? It's more identity actually. I think it's gonna be really interesting for the Okta of the world to actually become real security companies. Through M&A, they're not gonna build it. Or somebody's gonna have, like Wiz, escape velocity, and will just kick everybody.
yeah.
And
It's
and
that's a really interesting one. That the announcements at Next were really fantastic to see the way they leaned into agents. Wind came out with their agents. You mentioned Tuskira, right? They're all agentic right up front, and so um, we're really starting to see that shift go go nuts right now. I guess I don't know what you want to call that, but it's taking off, and it's going to be a fun ride. So, Nico, This has
Yeah.
been super fun. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, man, I should
Oh,
probably
yeah.
wrap this thing up.
Oh,
But
I gotta walk the dogs.
that's right. I got to write some more agents. Uh, and Nico, thank you very much for joining. It's been fantastic talking to you. We'll have to do this again because it's been a blast. And thank you.
No stop.
And yeah, if you want to follow Nico on LinkedIn, you should, because he writes really good stuff. I love seeing the hands-on stuff that you post too. You're like, hey, all right, watch how I did
Right.
this with this
I'm
agent.
overdue
So
for a demo. Yeah, I need to shoot the new
yeah,
demo.
all right.
Coming.
Well, I will keep my eye out for it. And again, thank you very much. And thanks for tuning in, and catch you next time on the Cloud. Got Cloud Security Bros in my mind because that's the company name now. I probably shouldn't have done that to myself. On Security Bros, we'll catch you next time on the next episode. Nico, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Take care.